My baby girl has arrived. Yes. Say hello, Ariah. Welcome to the world. Don't you just love this little newborn scrunch, by the way? Her little legs are so tiny. Say hello. Oh, sorry, I could literally do this all day. I'm just popping on today. Hi, my name is Rebecca. I am a mum of 6 children, and I did some videos recently just to post around what to take with you as a new mum from an experienced mum who was only taking the essentials. And I thought it only right to follow up with a little video all about my birth story and birth journey, not only because it's just so nice for you as a mum to capture all of those memories that inevitably will fade at some point. So I'm kind of recording it for my own prosperity. Is that the word? Prosperity? But also because I think it was such a different experience to anything that I have had before with all of my 5 labours, that there are actually a lot of lessons in my experience that I would love to pass on to new mums, because I think they're conversations that need to be had, and I think that there are important messages to look out for. So we're going to try and get through this with the baby actually on me, because she's still only around 9 days old at the moment, but we'll see how we get on. We might have to pass you off to daddy otherwise. So throughout my pregnancy, just to kind of explain the backstory and the context. So throughout my pregnancy, I had a lot of health challenges that I've never experienced before in any of my other pregnancies. I've always been very, very lucky to have not had any issues with me or the babies, but this one was completely different. And I think it was different for quite a few different reasons. Obviously, I'm a little bit older now, so I am what they consider like an older mum because I'm in my early 40s. I've also had so many pregnancies now because this is baby number 6, which comes with its own risks. And by the end of the pregnancy, I was literally having like weekly iron transfusions, which are like injections. And then also I had gestational diabetes, which again came with a load of issues in itself that I wasn't fully aware of. And I think that's like the first lesson for me, is that sadly in the UK, well, that didn't last very long. So essentially I had a lot of health problems prior to having the baby. This is why I was offered an induction at only 38 weeks. So typically they don't like to obviously bring the baby on early. I've had inductions before. I had one before because I was super sick with COVID and with my last baby. And it was just like a last minute decision that she was baked, let's get her out. So I hadn't really experienced the full induction process because it was relatively quick and easy last time. This time was quite different. So essentially what happened was I went to growth scan on the Wednesday because the baby had been measuring quite big, or my bump had been measuring quite big, and obviously, you know, I had diabetes, so I'd already been having regular growth scans, these iron infusions. I had also been having like daily prick tests for my sugar levels and all of the things. So it had already started to go, and I also had a chest infection, antibiotics. So just suddenly things started to go downhill very quickly from probably about 36 weeks. So I had a growth scan on the Wednesday night. They realised that the fluid around the baby was actually quite dangerously high. So it wasn't just higher than average, it was dangerously high. In that if I had spontaneously gone into labour at home and my waters are broken, because there was so much fluid around the baby, there was a chance that the cord could come down before the baby, which obviously is not good. So there was another layer of concern because my labours are also very quick. So my last baby was literally like an hour start to finish. Before that it was 20 minutes. So there was a real concern again that I might then not be able to get to the hospital in time. So they agreed for me to come back on the Thursday morning and essentially start the induction process. So what I had anticipated was that I would go in on the Thursday morning and literally be leaving that day with the baby, because historically, as soon as my waters have broke, even whether I've been having contractions or not, and that's what they were going to do, was break my waters in a controlled way, obviously, so they could manage it. And then as soon as my waters break in labour, like, the baby is here very quickly. So that was kind of the game plan going in. That was my mindset and my expectation. And I was almost like joking with the midwives and the doctors that, you know, get me in nice and early, I'll bang this baby out, we'll be home by dinner, and it will be a really quick labour. That didn't happen. So this, I think, is worth mentioning. I don't want to be super negative, but it did affect my mindset, and probably I'd like to think my stress levels and my health going into the delivery. But essentially, I was at a hospital where they were so busy and had so many patients coming in, and they serve such a wide area of people, that I was constantly getting pushed back, because they just didn't have enough resources, midwives or teams, to help deliver the amount of babies that were coming in. So I was sharing a room with another lady who was also in the same boat, but she was actually much further on in her pregnancy. So she was 42 weeks plus like a couple of days, which is unheard of. I didn't think that you could go that far in pregnancy. So that would be like 14 days over, 16 days over. I've never heard of that before. I didn't think that it was actually safe to go that far over, but maybe it is, I don't know. I thought the maximum was like 12 days, basically. So she was in there waiting to go to be induced also. And again, like, her labour had kind of started but not progressed, so they were going to break her waters. So what had happened was we were both kind of prepped multiple times, like, you're next. Nothing happened. So I was in there for 2 days. And basically, it felt like being fobbed off. And where I think I am more experienced in labour, so this is like one of my takeaways, is as a mum, your intuition is second to none. And if there is some part of you feels that something is not right, you have to speak up. Not in a rude way, an argumentative way, but just in a way that really lets people know you're not going to fob me off. So whilst I was in there for that time, I had 5 different sets of midwives, obviously because of the shift changes and different consultants coming in. So therefore, I had to explain to them, to 5 different people, why I was even there in the first place, because the notes were never updated. There was very little handover from the staff, and there just didn't seem to be any continuity of care. Anybody who was kind of like overseeing me as a patient, it was just like, I've clocked on, here I am, I'm here if you need anything, let me know, kind of thing. And I was like, wow, yes, I need to have my waters broken. Okay, no worries. Well, the feedback from the previous shift is there's lots of people ahead of you, but as soon as we can get you in, we will. And I heard that 5 times in a row. So I literally had just really started to, like, I think my mental health had started to deteriorate a little bit, because obviously I've been away from my other children since the Wednesday night. The consultant that I'd spoken to had said, literally, we'll get you in first thing on Thursday, we'll get this baby out, bada bing, bada boom, and you can be on your way, because we know, other than kind of the waters breaking, it's better for the baby to be here at this point, because you're both just kind of getting sicker. So that was kind of the experience. But then obviously I just reached breaking point, because I spoke with a new midwife on the Saturday morning, and she basically said, we will try and get you in today, but it could be any time up till Monday, because we're very busy, there's lots of people. And I was like, no, you have said since Wednesday night, I need to get this baby out. You told me this is a priority. And yet for the last 2 days, I've been continually fobbed off. And I've got so much sympathy and empathy for the midwives, because they're only kind of, you know, they can only do what they can do within the resources that they have. But equally, I have learned that I've been fobbed off many times in other labours and had terrible experiences. And I think you have to be assertive. And sometimes the people that they know they can push back, they will. So this is what happened with the woman that was next to me, and I'll come back to her in another story. But because it was her first baby, she didn't know what she didn't know. She didn't feel really confident. She put her complete trust into the healthcare system, believing that there is somebody overseeing her care and that they're doing what is best for her and her baby. You know, I know that she actually ended up going on for another 2 days before she was induced, and it caused issues with her baby. Also meant that she couldn't deliver it naturally because the baby had gone on for so long. So she ended up having a C-section that then meant that the baby got an infection, she had complications, and essentially it ended up causing like mental harm because her baby ended up in the ICU next to mine. And not only was he not well, but also she was not able to be there because she'd had the C-section. And it just really played on my mind because I was thinking, like, if she had put her foot down at the same time that I had, would she have had an easier delivery? Would the baby have an infection? Would that be their introduction to the world as a family? And that made me really sad for her because she didn't have anyone advocating for her. But for me, on the Saturday morning, I was leaving with that baby, even if I needed to go to another hospital. So I really put my foot down. I was super firm and just said, I cannot tell you why, but I feel like this baby needs to come out now. I feel like I am not well, she is not well, and the longer that this progresses, something bad is going to happen, and that is going to be on you, because I have been here willing, ready, flexible, like anytime, any day, any place. And they obviously just kept pushing us back. So again, as I said, sometimes you have to be quite firm with these things, and within an hour I was being induced. So that's the thing, you know, and I don't like to be that person, but I just had that strong sense that I need to get this baby out. So essentially I had an epidural, ladies, and I had the most beautiful birth that I have ever had. So I've had obviously 6 babies now. The 5 prior, I have never been able to have anything other than gas and air, basically. No pain relief, no epidural, because I've either got, well, I actually think I've been gaslit by midwives that have told me, you're too far on. And then like with my first 2, I carried on for another 2, and I'm like, I don't think I was, because I definitely could have fit an epidural in it this time, or I wasn't far enough, or, you know, just for various reasons. I've never been able to have an epidural, even with the induction of my last baby, where I was so sick and so weak. They let me go through that delivery naturally, which I just think now, like, that was actually quite cruel, because I was so poorly then after her, and the baby came out with COVID. So I could do a whole video on the state of the healthcare for pregnant people in the UK. It's just really barbaric, the lengths that they will push you to as a woman, of exhaustion, of self-doubt and jeopardy, health jeopardy, before they will really do anything. And I guess it is because we just have so many people here having babies. But essentially, I had an epidural, which was the most amazing experience, but I really had to beg for it, and I really had to plead, and I really almost had to put my case forward as to why I might want pain relief to have this baby. And the whole way through, as they were putting the line in and getting me set up, was, are you sure? This could cause long-term problems or whatever, and it might not work, and you've done it before, like, do you really need it? And I'm like, yes, I need it. And I am so glad again that I put my foot down and had an epidural, because it was the most beautiful delivery. Like, I can't even explain. I had a lovely student midwife with me the whole time, pretty much. 2 other midwives also that were there, kind of in, you know, popping in and popping out and overseeing. But it was just the most amazing, beautiful delivery. It was peaceful, it was calm, it really allowed me to connect with the baby before she got here, to really visualize her coming in. It felt so empowering, and like this beautiful celebration of life, as it should have been with all the others. But obviously I was kind of, you know, floating away with the clouds with the gas and air, in agony. So I can't say that I kind of welcomed them in with the same like ground-centered like gratitude that I did with this baby. And to the point where I actually managed to deliver my baby. Like, I'm not even joking. The midwife, so I just remember at the end, as I was pushing, I had literally like 3 beautiful women at the bottom, 2 student midwives and the midwife, as the baby was coming into the world, and they were like, if you reach your hand down now, her head is out. We've got one shoulder, so if you literally just like reach down and pull her out, you'll be able to literally birth your baby. And it was the most incredible experience. But I just remember looking down at that moment, seeing those three just amazing women, like, you can do it. It makes me emotional because it was just such a beautiful celebration of sisterhood and women supporting women, and how it probably would have been in like tribal days. And you know, these would have been our village elders that would have been helping me to birth this new human. So it really was just the most beautiful, incredible experience. I managed to pull her out, put her on my chest, and then it went downhill from there. So as soon as the baby came out, it was very evident that there was something wrong with her. She could barely breathe, and they called it like grunting noises, and it was constant, like she wasn't getting any relief from it. Sometimes with the other babies, like they've had a bit of something in their mouth, and I liken it to like a cat with a hairball, where they're like sort of thing. But once they've cleared it, they're good and they're fine. That didn't happen. So straight away, like the more senior midwife was like, okay, I think we need a pediatrician to see her, because that's not okay. So they did like the checks, cut the cord, did the things they needed to do. I was kind of sitting with her, and then obviously because I'd had an epidural, the line was still in, and right as they were like, we're going to take her rounds, just give her a little check, she'll be back in a minute, we just want a second opinion. So they did that. So they took her out of my arms, they took her around the other way, around to the neonatal unit, just to get like a pediatrician to have a quick check, see if there's anything they could do, maybe they could clear some of it for her. And my partner went with them. Just as I was like trying to get myself off the bed to go with them for the update, or get myself ready so that when they came back I could take the baby, the line was still in my back. So what happens with an epidural, in case you don't know, is that every 45 minutes it will automatically give you like a 45-minute dose, and you also have the button so you can top it up if it's not enough as you're going through the final bits of labour, or if you have really bad contractions. And as I was getting off, it injected me with another 45 minutes, which meant that I was literally paralysed from the waist down, because I'd had quite a strong reaction to the epidural, to the point where I couldn't even like lift my body up. So I was completely numb, couldn't get off the table, not the table, but the bed that I delivered her in. So then I was just kind of a bit helpless, kind of just because I couldn't help myself. I couldn't get off, have a shower. Then I started being really sick because I had like a bad reaction to the epidural, which was still worth it. So I'm throwing up, you know, completely exposed, having a nightmare. And then my partner's come back, and it still gets me now. And he's come back with the paediatrician, and he was like, they need to have a word. And obviously at that point, my heart just dropped, because I was like, where's my baby? And they were like, you can't have her. She's actually, we suspect, because of the diabetes that I had, her lungs weren't fully formed in the womb. And she just missed off that fight. I don't know if it ever would have happened, even if we'd gone on further in the pregnancy, or whether that just never would have happened because of the illness that I had. But her lungs hadn't fully formed, and they essentially needed to keep her in intensive care to help her breathe. So that was just like the worst moment, I think, of my life, because it had never even entered into my awareness after 5 healthy deliveries that there would be something wrong with this baby. Like, I was so confident, just literally, let me get her here and we will be fine. And, you know, so that was fully heartbreaking, because then I had to wait the hour and I couldn't shower or anything else. So I never got, you know, with the other kids, there's like a running joke about tea and toast and having that beautiful shower after the baby. It's the most amazing. And then you get to snuggle with your baby. Like, I didn't get any of that. And it was heartbreaking, because that's why I was being too sick for the tea and toast. So I never got anything to eat for hours after that. Obviously couldn't have the shower, and I definitely didn't have my baby. So by the time I got round there in a wheelchair, they, because I was literally like, just help me, somebody help me to at least cover up so I can get round there. She was already hooked up to all the machines. She had like breathing, like apparate like up her nose and everything else. and that she was there for the next few days, and it was really touch and go. And I think, and they kept having to increase her oxygen flow to the point where they were actually going to incubate her at one point, which I just honestly, the poor women that have to stay in there for months on end, my heart really goes out to them, because you couldn't feel more helpless as a mum to see all of that. And I don't want it to be a negative birth story, but I think there was a lot of lessons learned in like surrender, in gratitude, in being supported by others, and just kind of trusting the process. And it was just very, very hard, the whole kind of, because, you know, equally I wanted to breastfeed her. I couldn't even do that until like day 3, because it wasn't physically possible because of all the tubes and all the things. I could barely hold her for the first day. I actually couldn't hold her for the first, 6 hours or whatever. And just, yeah, it was just really, really hard. So then I had all these other thoughts around, like, this is going to then impact our breastfeeding journey, which to me is just so sacred and so special. Obviously I work for myself, so it's not like I have a maternity leave and I can spend all this time with my baby fully focused on her, and we'll catch up with it later, because the very real reality of my situation is, if I don't work, I don't earn money. So there was always going to be this need to kind of be flexible with how I looked after her anyway at home, because I was still going to have to be doing some element of work. I didn't want it to be straight back to work as much as it has been, because I had measures in place and reoccurring revenue to at least enable me to have a little bit of time off. But when I was in the hospital, I had clients that actually defaulted on payments, clients that cancelled their contracts, that were supposed to then see me through my maternity leave without any notice, just because they were aware of the complications potentially with the pregnancy and the labour and the induction, and they felt like they weren't going to get the service that they wanted. So, that really just put me in a terrible position straight out the gate, knowing that I'm not going to get that much time with this baby anyway, because I'm going to have to go back to work, because I've now lost thousands of pounds in, and another client, it wasn't her fault, but personal issues. But equally, there were contracts in place, there was reoccurring revenue that was supposed to see me through, thousands of pounds that disappeared in like several emails. So I had that added pressure of, God, I'm like just, going to miss out on all of these beautiful experiences. Like, am I going to be able to breastfeed her? Am I going to have time with her and at home? And as well as, like, is she going to be okay? Because one thing I've learned is time is so interesting in a hospital. If you've ever spent any extended period of time in hospital, it's like so much can happen in just a couple of hours. So like the first night I went to bed, they were going to do a procedure on her, which was like essentially putting steroids into her lungs to give them like a massive dose of steroids to hopefully get them to rectify themselves. And it was almost like, the procedure is not nice, we don't want you to be here to see it, but we're confident it will fix everything. So that was like obviously weighing on me, that my poor baby is in the other room and I can't be with her, and she's going through, this is her introduction to life. Like, this is just so sad. And then I went to bed, and they were like, we'll call you every hour with updates, because equally I just had the most exhausting 4 or 5 days of my life with the induction, and I was also sick. So I was fully expecting to wake up after that hour and, yeah, baby's good, everything's great, or at least on the mend. And actually she got worse because she hadn't responded to it. So then they were thinking, we're going to give it another hour or 2. If she is still struggling, like, we've increased her flow of oxygen, which is actually quite a lot for a little tiny body. But then they were saying our next step is to incubate her, which would have just been so traumatic. So then obviously, didn't go to sleep, waited for the next update, and actually she's a little bit better, but still, they can increase their flow. So it was just a constant roller coaster. And I think anybody that's had a baby in ICU will understand that journey. So it really was quite just not a great introduction that I wasn't anticipating. But again, you know, constant changes of staff, of doctors, of opinions. You'd go in and speak to one person, they're giving you one update. You'd go away, have lunch, come back, and somebody else is giving you a different update. You'd be there for the rounds and the appointments. Somebody else would have a different view. So, you know, at one point, it was almost like the Boris Johnson, where it's like, go to work, stay at home, but go to work. Go to work, don't go to work. It was just like so confusing. And in the meantime, I've still got 5 other children at home. So obviously my partner couldn't be with me for a lot of that because he had to be with them. And it was just very lonely, very humbling, and really gave me a great opportunity to rethink about business, life, how I want to do things. I think the experiences with some of my clients really made me think as well. And I believe that everything in life happens for a reason, and you have to take the lessons from any bad situation, because if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. And that's how you can create purpose from something that is essentially very negative and traumatic. You know, obviously part of my story is like I had a very traumatic childhood, but I'm actually grateful for it because it, you know, gave me layers of depth and, you know, experiences, it's deeper levels of empathy, you know, just so many blessings that I can take away from those situations. It was the same with the baby. I was like, I'm not going to walk away with a terrible birth story and just a real sense of loss and sadness attached to this. I'm going to walk away with it. I know she's going to be okay. I just could not in any reality believe that she wouldn't be. But what does this mean? Like, what can I take away from this? And I think, like I say, a lot of that relates to my work. Also our family values and plans that I had for this year. It's made me like rethink some of the things because it's going to put me under a lot of pressure financially to deliver on those things. And it's like, actually, does that matter right now? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it is about just healing our family, healing me, healing the baby, getting back to less pressure, just more intention. And if that means losing money and not feeling that sense of growth in my business journey so that I can be what I want to be, the kind of mum that I want to be in at home, that's fine. And it's like there was a lot of acceptance, surrender, realignment, all of the things. And ultimately, you know, several days later, she did start to recover. I managed to feed her. And everything is great. She's now home. The kids are amazing. They have really adapted to another little human being, equally with their mum not being as available, and just really helped with this like team effort at home. Like the baby is the most celebrated baby ever. And I'm just so excited to be home with her and have her here with me. So I think my takeaways from this story, if you've watched it to the end, thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, because I want to find a creative place for all of this wonderful stuff that goes on in my life. People always ask me, I don't know how you do it. Run several businesses, have 6 kids, largely on my own, and you know, living in London, there's a lot of pressure and everything here financially, being self-employed, and doing all the things that I do. And a lot of that isn't necessarily appropriate to share on my business pages because that's a business page and I'm selling programs and things, and communities and that are very much tailored towards women in business. But I wanted a creative home for all the things that are just us as a family. Like I am an extra person. We do go all out on, you know, occasions, holidays, everything is a celebration in our house, and I love that about us. We love to travel, and equally, you know, as a money mentor, I know ways to save money, to use it with more intention, to and all the things. So I'm excited to see where this journey takes me this year on this creative project and outlet by sharing more of me and the kids at home and more parts of myself online. It's, you know, that's going to be a lot as well. Quite a private person by nature, albeit, you know, never undervaluing the power of being able to work from home and having kids and all the things. So I hope you join us on this journey. But my takeaways from my labour as a whole is that if you are a mum and something doesn't feel right, either in yourself or with what's going on, then you have to speak up, and you have to not assume that other people have your best interests at heart. Because as I said, even though they have the best intentions, their hands are tied and resources are limited. So as I mentioned, the woman that I was sharing the room with, 2 days into our ICU journey, her baby then came in with her husband, and it was really hard to watch him so upset. Obviously, new dad, solely responsible for this baby because the mum physically cannot get into the ICU because she's still in a hospital bedbound after a C-section. And just imagining what I had gone through, she would equally be going through. So I need to find them, track them down online somehow. But just, I did wonder, like, if they put their foot down like I had, would that have changed their circumstances or not? But either way, just like I say, if you see something or feel something that doesn't feel right, make sure that you speak out. But equally, you know, make sure that you are kind of flexible with the journey. You know, I had all these preconceived notions of how it was going to go, and actually it didn't go to plan in that way. Some elements were better, some were obviously a lot worse, but I am not going to allow that to define our birthing journey, because on the whole, when I look back, it still makes me smile thinking about those 3 women that were really supporting me, and that moment of her coming into the world. Like, that is what I'm going to hold on to. I'm not going to let the stuff that came after or before define our journey together and her being welcomed into the world. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know any comments, and if you've had any similar experiences or have any tips that you want to share with other new mums on your journey and things that you wish that you could have done differently. Let's all help each other as women to just have the most incredible birthing experiences and experiences of motherhood.